Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of our Gravity game tutorial. In this video we're going to focus on using the or creating a user interface. Setting it up so that we have some graphics on the screen that we can manipulate, have some buttons on the screen we can touch and make them do things. This is a system that can be confusing, but if we really think about what we're doing here, it'll be kind of easy to see how all this works. All right. So normally with a scene, we would dump in a bunch of art assets and we'd start moving them around on the screen, but we don't need to do that with this. With this, we're going to use a canvas that we can put objects on, like text or buttons or things like that. We're going to overlay that onto our camera, and we won't really have any actual game objects in this scene whatsoever. I'm going to change the background color of my camera to black so that it's so that it kind of matches the aesthetic style of our game. And that's really all we need to do with the camera. Let's see what's next. Well, let's go ahead and create our user interface canvas. So if we go down to Create, and then we go to UI for User Interface, we have a lot of options here. These are all things that we can use in our user interface. What we want to do is we actually want to create a text object first. We want to put a title on the screen. So I'm going to click Text. And notice a bunch of different things popped up here. We have Canvas, which is somewhat of a container that holds all of our user interface objects. We have text and event system. The text object is an object that allows us to put text inside of the canvas. And then the event system is something we're not really going to play around with just yet. So let's talk about the screen or the canvas. If I go over here to my canvas in the inspector, I have a transform thing that I'm not going to worry about. And then I have my my canvas options here. What I'm going to want to do is go to screen space camera, basically to create a camera that is rendered directly over my camera. The text, I'm going to find my text object, which is now here, right over top of my camera. If I click the camera, see the camera's there, and I have my canvas, which is directly over the camera, and I have my text object, which is right there. Now, in case you're confused, in order to find a new object, let's say you click on something and it's like outside of your view, like that, you can just click the F key, and it will it'll find that object wherever in the game world it is. Sometimes with user interface stuff, things just kind of go all over the place. All right, so now I have this text object. I can really just kind of put it wherever I want. I can make all the changes I want. Let's go over here to the text options, or the text component on the text object, I guess. And let's change the text. I'm going to call this Gravity Game. And I am going to, let's see, font. The only thing that we have available in the default version of Unity is Arial. So I'm not going to play around with importing a new font. Arial's fine. Make it bold, and I will make it really big. I'm going to make it really big. Wow. Wow. And I'm going to center it. Maybe a little bit bigger. Whoosh, whoosh. That looks good. And I'm going to change the font or the color to white. And let's see what else. I think that's pretty much it. Make sure it's centered in my game view. Boom. Gravity Game. Now if I look at my game screen, so now I have Gravity Game right in the middle of my screen. Perfect. Okay, so now my title's on there, my text is on there. Now we need to get a button in there. So buttons are actually pretty easy too. We just go to Create UI and Button, and it'll pop a button right there. And I'm actually going to make the button bigger, make it a nice big button. Put it right there. And then if we go to the button object in the hierarchy, we notice that there is a little arrow beside it, which means there's something as a child underneath the button. And what's underneath the button as a child is actually another text object, and it's, you guessed it, the text inside the button. So we can go over here to text, we can type play, all caps. We can set this to bold. We can make it big, 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 play. There are a lot of things we can do with the button as well. For example, we can change the sprite. We can change whatever the button, the UI sprite, we can change the sprite of the button itself. Like if we make custom buttons in a drawing program or Photoshop or any other image manipulation program, or we download some cool button sprites from off the internet, we can change the look of the button. We can also change the color of the button. I can make the button, you know, red or whatever I want, whatever looks cool for the game. I'm just going to keep it white. What else? Change the material, blah, blah, blah. There's all kinds of stuff here. The button script gives you options for changing the color based on based on the operation. So for example, I can change the highlighted color and the pressed color. And then when I play the game, I can hover over the button and it'll change to that highlighted color here. And when I press it, it'll change to the pressed color, which is something I can do there as well. These I'm actually gonna change the highlight color to blah. Actually, I'm gonna go back to, I like the default styles for right now. That's fine. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right. So now we have a button that we can click. We have a text here that that shows us what we're doing. But we don't really have anything that tells us what to do. We don't really have any, when we click the button, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. So what we want to do first is we want to make sure there's something for us to go to. So I'm going to go into my scenes folder here. I'm going to create a new scene. And I'm going to call it, level_1, just so that I can make my first level. So now that's there. We don't actually have to go into it. I just need something to be there for right now. Okay, so now we have a level 1. Now we need a script that's going to be able to handle how we move around from, you know, clicking the button to going to the next thing to doing the whatever. So I'm going to go into, let's see. You know what I want to do with this game? I'm actually going to make everything in this game in one single solitary script. We're going to use one script to handle the entire game itself. And it's going to be a fun project. So let's just call this game script because it's the only script we're going to use. And let's just attach this. We need this script to be attached to some object in the game, so or in this scene in order for it to work. So let's just go ahead and attach it to this event system. It's not really going to do anything for us. It's just going to hold that script. All right, now let's get into the script really quickly and set up this functionality. Okay, opening up Visual Studio. You may be surprised at how easy this is going to be. This is going to be probably easier than you're expecting, but it's going to be super, super, super easy for what we're needing to do. Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and get rid of all this stuff first. We're going to create a bunch of our own methods later on, our own functions later on. We don't really need to worry about that stuff now. What we do need to worry about, though, is we need a new namespace. These up here, these are all namespaces, essentially libraries. And we need to use a new one. We need to bring in a new one. Essentially, oh, I didn't mean to scroll out there. let's very quickly change, nope, not properties. In tools, options, and fonts and colors. Sorry guys, I don't know what happened. I'm gonna set this to say 18 so it's a little easier to see. All right. So we needed a new namespace, and these namespaces are actually pretty easy to add. All we have to do is type using Unity engine dot scene management, and it's already recognizing it, so it's pulling it up for me. And what that does is it allows me to actually manage my scenes using code. It allows me to move from one scene to another or reload a scene just using my code. And so we're going to definitely need that. Do not forget to add that in, or the next thing we do is going to really freak out your program. It's not going to know what to do. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to create a new function, and we need to have a function that allows us to click the button, go to next scene, or go to first level. Right, so we need a method that looks for a button click and then goes to the next level. Well, the cool thing is we don't actually have to look for the button click, because the button click itself is going to call this function. So it's actually even easier than you're probably thinking. We need to create a public method, because that method needs to be accessed outside of this script. So we're going to create a public method where it's void because it doesn't return any properties, and then we're going to call this click. Okay, and this play click method is going to do one thing. It's going to call scene manager, and it's going to load scene. And the name of that scene is level_1. That's pretty much it. Let me make sure that scene is actually level_1. Yep, that's it. That's all we need for the scripting for this user interface. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this to Unity. And wait a second. All right. So now we can go back to Unity. All right, cool. Now, if we go back to our button object, we want to set it up so that this is tied to that functionality, that function that we just created. So if we look over in the inspector, we have this little option right here that says on click. Essentially, when we click the button, what do we want it to do? Well, let's click this little plus here, and it gives us a bunch of options. First of all, there's an object here. We need to tie it to an object. Well, we put our events or our game script onto the event system object. So we're going to drag this over, pop her in right there. And then now this no function menu just highlighted itself, just came online. So we can click that and look for it. And look, we have our game script. And if we go over here, we have our play click method. Boom. So now essentially what we just said was, when this button is pressed, it's going to call the play click method inside of the game script that's attached to the event system object. That's really all that's all we've done. So now let's test it out, see if it works. So that's my game splash screen. That looks good. And when I click it, it says load or scene level 1 couldn't be loaded because it has not been added to the build settings, or the asset bundle has not been loaded. So basically it's just saying we can't load that game. We can't load that level because there's nothing in the level to load. But we know it's at least trying to do something. So perfect. Alrighty, so that is it for the user interface. Now, we're going to do a little bit of user interface in the back end when we create the game over screen, but it's essentially going to be the same thing here, and I'll cover that again when we start wrapping up the game. In the next video, we're going to build the first level, and then we're going to test out this functionality of going back and forth from the splash screen to the first level, and we're going to start setting up some of the functionality of the game. Alrighty, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.